You're listening to Beauty and Beyond Playbook. I'm your host, Mitzi Hernandez. Welcome back to the podcast. If you're a regular listener, and if you're new, welcome to the podcast. Today we are talking about blurring the lines between personal and professional life. I think this is something that is often not talked about in the beauty industry, or at least I haven't seen people talk about it, but I know it's something that comes up all the time in my mentorship calls, and I've struggled with it for many years until I want to say in 2020 I was like, no more of this. We cannot keep living like this. So first and foremost, let's talk about what does that look like? What does it create? Like what kind of issues does it create? And then we'll talk about how radical self-trust is going to help you with that in ways that you, if you're struggling with it right now, can deal with this blurred line of personal and professional life. Okay. So there is two versions of this. This is the first version where your personal life deeply affects your work life, right? And I see this a lot or not anymore because of like the target audience I work with now, but in the past, when I very first started mentoring, I saw that a lot in my mentees. So what that looks like is whatever's happening at home, quote unquote home, you let it completely spill over to your business. So you and your man are arguing, you don't want to come into work, you cancel your appointments. You and your man are arguing, so you cancel the last appointment to go home and argue with him in person. Or you cancel your first appointment because you stayed up too late arguing with him at night, right? Another one could be the stuff that's happening at home, whether that's you're getting cheated on, or you are lonely and you don't have a boyfriend, or your mom is getting on your nerves, or your kids are not acting right. And then you come and you bring it to work and you just spill it all over your clients. Ladies, please remember our clients are not our therapist. Even though trust me on this one, I have been guilty of crying to not a lot of clients. I would say maybe 2 or 3 clients. I have been guilty of crying to my clients, but for the most part, our clients are not our therapist. Please try your hardest not to make your clients your therapist. That is not what they pay us for, and a lot of people fucking hate that. Let's talk about the one that I'm the most fucking guilty of. And it took a long fucking time for me to finally be able to stop blurring those lines. And that is work home, meaning taking work home. Now, obviously, we do not work at home, or at least I don't work at home. If you do have a home-based studio, I bet you that's even a little bit harder to like separate work and home. But what I mean is you make friends with your clients and you take them home. That sounds like I'm saying you're having sex with them. That's not what I mean. What I mean is working home. That's like, I was trying to, use that little thing, but it sounds like you're fucking your clients. Hey, everything is possible in this world. So I'm sure there's some lash artist fucking their clients somewhere in the world, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is for a long time, I became friends with a lot of my clients, and I would deeply intertwine my life and their life outside of lashes. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. I get to hang out with my friends. It's the fucking worst. Okay. The more in depth you get with your clients at the beginning of your career, or even if it's not the beginning of your career, even if you've been doing this shit for 10 years, if you're a people pleaser and you have a lot of issues with boundaries, you have a lot of issues with codependency tendencies, which, believe it or not, most of the girls that I mentor have heavy codependency tendencies. I'll make a podcast episode of how codependency shows up in the beauty industry. If you have codependent tendencies, you tend to really blur the lines between what a client should be and what an artist should be and what a friend should be. And what that means is if you are really bad at setting boundaries, your friends will start not treating you as respectfully in the room, because they can't, like, I've always said this, I say this in all of my podcast episodes, it's not that people are just like walking around evil and like scoping out who they can get over on. It's honestly a subconscious and an energetic thing that happens before we even figure out it's happening. That is why it is so important that you are constantly working on your radical self-trust, and that you are constantly working on yourself so that you can catch those patterns. Because what happens is, actually, I'll make a whole nother episode about that subconscious and the energetic. Sorry, I'm like writing it down, so that's why I'm like speaking like that. Tendencies that happen before we even realize it's happening, and how you can work on yourself so that that doesn't rule your world. But if you tend to be a people pleaser, if you tend to not stand up for yourself, if you tend to just be someone that shrinks instead of takes up space and has boundaries and stuff, your friends, I promise you, are going to start crossing boundaries they don't even realize they're there, because at a subconscious level, that is just the way you're calling them to act. Now, none of us are consciously trying this. Like, you're not like, please mistreat me, and they're saying, okay, I'm going to mistreat you. What's happening is the brain is picking up on patterns and is realizing the dynamic that this situation is. And like I said, I'll make a whole podcast episode on that so that you understand what I mean, because I heavily stand by the fact that the reason that sometimes we continue to live Groundhog Day over and over, for those who are super young and don't know what that is, that's a movie of a man who every day he wakes up, he's reliving the same fucking day, which is Groundhog Day. So that's what keeps us living the same life over and over and over every day. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you see this a lot in dating, where it's like different places, different faces, but the same things keep happening. It's not because you attract narcissists. It's not because all men are trash. It's not because the dating pool is trash. It's literally because who you are has not changed. And so you keep matching up with people that energetically and subconsciously match you based on your habits, your thoughts, your beliefs. Okay? And that's all I'll say right now, but I'll get back to the topic at hand. If you are someone like that, which I heavily used to be, I used to be someone that I would shrink the fuck out of myself, right? Like, if you meet Mitzi now, you're like, no way. Yes way. Like, I definitely used to shrink the fuck out of myself. I definitely used to be afraid of all of my fucking clients. And then when I would get them to like me and they would be my friend, then the boundaries would start getting crossed. And God, it was just a fucking shit show, right? So that is how lines get blurred, whether you're bringing work home or homework. Okay? All right. So the reason that you struggle to draw that line between personal and professional is because, like I stated, you probably have codependent tendencies. You definitely struggle with boundaries. And a lot of the times you are a people pleaser and you're disorganized. Now, again, I always say this in every podcast episode, but I give a disclaimer for people who are being introduced to my podcast for the first time. When I say this kind of shit, even though I say it very bluntly, at no point am I shaming you for it. I, like I stated, have been there where you are. I have done not wonderful fucking things I'm not proud of. I have made mistakes that I fucking hate. I am not above you. I always say this. I do not believe that we are living in a hierarchy. I don't believe I'm better than you. I believe that I have gone through shit that maybe you have not gone through. And so I can help you on your journey so that you don't feel so much pain and you don't have so many pit stops and blocks on where you're trying to go, which is a booked out beauty business. Those are the characteristics that you embody. And in order for that to stop, it's not your client's fault. It's not your boyfriend's fault. It's not your mama's fault. It's nobody's fault but your own. You have to be able to separate them so that you do not get burnt out, so that you do not become suicidal, so that you do not feel anxious, or so you do not feel overwhelmed. To avoid all those negative emotions, they have to completely be separated, because if you work all the time, it's gonna burn you out. I promise. And when I mean work all the time, I'm saying you're bringing work home, it's going to burn you out. And if you're bringing home to work, it's gonna burn you out too. So now that we've talked about what it looks like, now that we've talked about the bad stuff that could happen or is happening, if you're listening and you're like, what the fuck, this is happening to me right now that we've talked about that, let's talk about how you can get past that. First and foremost, through radical self-trust, and then after that, actionable steps. Why do I preach self-trust so much? Because when you learn to literally put your blinders on and you realize it's me against me. And what I mean by me against me, I don't mean you look at your old self and you shame your old self and say, ew, I don't want to be this person. I want to be someone else. But me, meaning the person that went through shit, the person that was raised a certain way, the person that had certain experiences, that has picked up maladaptive practices. And what I mean by maladaptive practices, it means you have picked up habits, thoughts, beliefs that do not serve you to your highest good. You did not pick it up again because you're bad, because you're dumb, because you're stupid, because you deserve bad things to happen to you. You picked it up because of the experiences that were happening in your life, and nobody in your life ever taught you the skills. No one sat you down. A teacher, a therapist, a friend, a cousin, your mom, a church member. No one sat you down and said, these are the skill sets you need so that when terrible things happen to you or when life gets fucking hard, you know how to overcome it and not personalize it. Okay? Because that's honestly all it is. Any maladaptive habit that we have, we picked it up because no one taught us better. Point blank fucking period. That's all it is. And what I created out of the trust journey is a compilation of skill sets that you need to have plus strategies so that you are as successful as possible in your beauty business. And those skills are not just used in your beauty business. So not only are you going to obviously make more money and be happier in your beauty business, but those skills will literally change the rest of your fucking life because those skills are needed in all areas of your life. Communication is needed. Boundaries are needed. Learning to decipher who truly is my friend, who's not, or who's good for me, who's not. All of that, you need that to date. You need that to see who you want to go into business with. You need the skills for so much. And the trust journey, I am putting together all of these videos and all of this workbooks and all of these things so that you can learn and bypass all the shit that I had to go through to learn the skill sets because it wasn't clicking for me. When I was going through all this stuff, when I was blurring the lines between home and work, I knew that I could be different. Like I knew that there were people that didn't act like me, but I thought something's wrong with me. Like I'm lonely and so I make friends with my clients because I'm a fucking loser and I can't hang out with anyone else, right? Like I would personalize it. Or if something was happening at home and I like dumped it on my clients, I would feel so much shame. Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. I can't believe I just cried to this client. What is she going to say? Is she going to tell her friends? Is she going to come back? Did I just ruin my money? Is this going to ruin my business? Like I personalized it so much. And that is actually one of the skills that you learn inside of the trust journey, how not to personalize stuff, how to view it from a third party, from an observer and not an experiencer. Because when we feel things, when things are going on, for example, you're having issues with your significant other at home and you live with them, and then you're going to work and it's fucking up your money because of the way you're acting, or you're dropping the ball, you're canceling appointments, whatever, it feels very real to us, right? Like it feels like, how do I separate both when like it's so hard that I'm arguing with my boyfriend, or it's so hard that I think I'm going to get a divorce with my husband, right? And it requires skills. It requires skills because, and y'all know me, I love to go on different little tangents because, baby girl, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. Actually, I'm going to give you a hug. Imagine I'm hugging you right now and I'm rubbing your back, right? And on no creepy shit, like on a friendship shit, you know? Life is hard. Life just is hard. life just is hard. Life itself, the concept of life, the aging process, losing people we love, the uncertainty, like life as a whole is hard. And the people that you see thrive in life, it's not always because they have money, right? And for a long fucking time, I thought thriving meant having money, right? Like, even though my mental health was like in the fucking gutter, I literally was like, if I have more money, then my life would get better. And now what I've realized is, no, if you have the fucking skill sets to keep yourself cool, whether you have money or you don't have money, whether you reach your goal or you don't reach your goal, whether you're married or you're single, whether you're cheated on or they're faithful to you, whether whatever fucking happens, true thriving is being able to get a hold of your mental health and your emotional stability and your nervous system and have that be as even keeled as possible. That to me is thriving. Because someone who knows how to handle their emotions, someone who knows how to regulate their nervous system, someone who knows how to keep their mental health as stable as possible, not only are they thriving in the moment, meaning they're not getting beat up by life or beat up by situations, but they're also going to be able to thrive in business. Because it doesn't matter how many no's they get, how many rejections they get, how many weeks they go without a client. They're going to keep going because they know where they want to go. And having radical self-trust, which by the fucking way is a skill set. It's a skill set. Like, you're not going to join the trust journey and then I'm going to be like, here's radical self-trust and I'm just going to bop you in the head and you're going to have it. It's a skill set. Radical self-trust requires a lot of skills. And when you have radical self-trust, your confidence grows and then they feed each other. So when you trust yourself, when you know you have your blinders on and you understand this life is for me to live. It's me against me. I am on one path and my path is unique. And just because the girls next to me, whoever they may be, whether it's my neighbor or my business partner or my sister or my mother, just because they're on one path does not mean I have to stray and get on theirs. My path is unique to me. When you fucking realize that and you feel that, like you feel that to your fucking core, radical self-trust will lead you to beautiful fucking places. And I mean that. I truly mean that. When I had all this fucking skills, it meant nothing because I went to therapy for like 4 years, weekly therapy. That's how like deep I got into it. I was like, I'm going to go every single week for this many years because I need to get better. When I committed to making myself better, I just had a shit ton of skills. But I didn't have radical self-trust. And as much as my therapist, love her, you hear me? Love her life. As much as she taught me so many skills, what I ended up doing is knowing the skills, but putting my trust in her and always needing her to help me make decisions. And when I stopped going to therapy for, I want to say like 6 months, that's when I learned true radical self-trust and I put it to work. And ever since then, it has been guiding me in everything I do, right? Like even the name of this podcast used to be called Dear Lash Artist. Now it's called Beauty and Beyond Playbook, right? Radical self-trust. I made that decision by myself in seconds. Like I just felt it in my body. And you have the same ability. You have the same ability to feel when you're being called to do something or when you know what decision you have to do, when you know if you have to leave a relationship, when you know that work is affecting your personal life and when personal life is affecting your work. Like you have that within you. You just haven't worked up the muscle to keep it going. You haven't worked up the muscle to believe I'm right. Let me follow this nudge, right? When I feel those nudges, I just go with those nudges because like I said, I am on a path that is so unique to me. No one can tell me what I should do besides me. How can my mama tell me what I should do? She's going to go based off of her own life, right? The reason that I switched over to it not just being business and content is because what worked for me worked for me. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. And if you tap into your fucking radical self-trust, then you'll learn to decipher what parts of what Mitzi's teaching me do I use and what parts do I not use. What parts of what Mitzi is teaching me do I remix for my business so that my business thrives my way, the way I want it to, right? But if you don't have radical self-trust, I'm just handing you a play-by-play of how I grew my business, and you could do that, and I promise you, you're going to have success, because every single girl I ever gave the playbook to, she had success. But the thing is, once they stop working with me, it declines because it wasn't necessarily the business they needed. They did not follow their self-trust. And up until this year, I could not put my finger on what it was until I realized, like, I started doing groups. And when I started doing groups, the main thing I realized all of the girls that were signing up for my programs they were lacking radical self-trust. So when you have radical self-trust, you learn how to set boundaries. You know who to be with. You know who should be your friend from your clients. You know which ones are going to take advantage of you. You know what's more important to you. Yes, maybe you and your boyfriend fought last night, but you know that business is super important to you because your radical self-trust tells you to prioritize business. Or your radical self-trust tells you you don't need to go to work and just dump on them. Cancel the fucking day. Even if that's not what your mind is telling you, you're getting nudges from within that's telling you cancel your day, take the day off, figure it out, go back to work, nice and fresh-eyed, instead of forcing yourself to go to work and then dumping everything that's happening to you on your clients. Right? But that's what I mean by, like, no one can truly tell you what to do. I can advise you. I can teach you a whole lot of motherfucking skills so that you learn how to do what you need to do. And that's why radical self-trust is the answer for a lot of the problems that you're encountering, a lot of the problems that I've encountered, right? But definitely for blurring the lines. So now let's talk about some actionable skills that you can use right now. First and foremost, I want you to just start with recognizing the signs of the blur. That's first and foremost what's going to make you realize, oh shit, I have a problem, right? What do they say at like Alcoholics Anonymous? You like the first step is just to admit you have a problem, right? So once you recognize the signs and how it shows up for you, then you can move forward to something better. So that's number one. Just recognize the signs. Journal about it. Write it in your notes app on your phone. Like, just recognize the signs. Don't shame yourself. Don't feel bad about it. Just literally just start recognizing. That's the very first actionable step you're going to make. Okay? And then once you figure that out, figure out what about it, like what bleeds into each other. So every time, like let's say for a whole week, you just analyze your habits and your thought patterns and the way that you do stuff and write down how it's blurring the lines. Once you've done like a whole week's worth of it, go back and try to figure out where it blurs and how it affects you. Is it that you stay up late at night watching Netflix because you're just so stressed all the time, and then that makes you wake up late the next day, and then you're running late all day long, and that affects you, and so then you stay up late at night and you're stuck in this bad cycle? So once that you have done that, I want you to think of boundaries with the skills that you have right now, boundaries that you can put down either at home or at work, so that it just takes your emotional stress or your emotional exhaustion, anxiety, whatever, sadness from, let's say you're at a 9, 10 being the worst, from a 9 down to an 8. Radical self-trust is going to take that 9 down to a 2. But I'm just giving you actionable steps right now that you can do without joining the trust journey that is going to make that 9 turn into an 8. And you might be listening to this and being like, well, why the fuck would I do that? I don't want to turn the 9 into an 8. I want the 9 to be a 2. Going down to an 8 is going to lift the load in ways you don't even realize. So please try this. If you can relate to what the fuck I'm talking about in this episode, please try this actionable steps that I'm giving you. So then you're going to write down boundaries. Once you figure out the boundaries, I want you to implement ways that you can take care of yourself, because those boundaries are going to rebound. And what that means is, as you set boundaries and you're not used to it, you're going to feel uncomfortable, whether that's guilty, sad, mean, scared. I want you to engage in activities that are going to recharge you. I don't want you buying shit. I don't want you binge watching shit. I don't want you going out and eating something that you haven't let yourself eat, like a cake or a pie. Instead, I want you to go for a walk. I want you to journal. I want you to congratulate yourself every single time you feel that fear. I want you to say, good job. You're doing something hard, but you're going through with it. I want you to pick up a hobby. I want you to stretch. I want you to do some yoga on YouTube. Anything like that. Some breathing exercises. That's how I want you to take care of yourself. Now, if you do that and you stick with it for 90 days, watch how your fucking life is going to improve. Watch. I'm telling you, watch. It's going to change your life. You're going to be like, wow, that's crazy. And even if that 9 only goes down to an 8, being at an 8 is going to feel so much better. As someone who used to operate in extremes, even if you go from a 9 to an 8, eventually that 8 is going to go down to a 7. And if you are interested in this concept of radical self-trust, I am putting together the whole back end, like the videos and the workbooks and all that. I'm working on that right now because the trust journey is eventually going to go live. I've decided to change the format of it. I think I had made it a 12-week program, and I've actually decided to make it a subscription-based program where like you pay for it monthly. And that way you stay in as long as you want to stay in. You use the tools and learn the skills and have access to me as long as you want, versus me being like, okay, let's try to jam pack this in 12 weeks. So I'm super excited for it. But of course, I'm building the back end of it so that when people start joining, there's things ready for them to go so that everyone can get the most out of it and everyone can arrive to radical self-trust. Because I swear by that, like, it has changed my life. Even right now, if you follow me on Instagram, there's a lot of uncertainty and instability in my life. But even then, I'm using my radical self-trust and my confidence to get me through it. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. As always, please feel free to DM me. I love when I get DMs from people that listen to my podcast. If you have any questions, any comments, feel free to DM me. Until then, you will hear from me in the next podcast.